Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the Sacramento Railyards former manufactured gas plant public meeting. Today is July 26, 2023, 6 p.m. I am Tammy Pickens, the Public Participation Specialist for the Department of Toxic Substance Control. Next slide. Participating in this meeting, you understand that this meeting is being recorded. You may be muted for the background noise. During the question and comments, we will focus on topics related to today's presentation. We will do our best to listen and address all comments and questions so that everyone can participate. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Next slide. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide information regarding the Sacramento Railyards Manufactured Gas Plant, MGP, receive comments on the Remedial Action Plan, RAP, and answer questions. The presentation materials are available at www.envirostore.dtsc.ca.gov UP Downtown Sac Manufactured Gas Plant. Media questions can be referred to Russ Edmondson at the DTSC Office of Communication at russ.edmondson@dtsc.ca.gov. This information is provided in the chat below. Next slide. Tonight's agenda includes opening remarks by myself, Tammy Pickens, the Public Participation Specialist, an overview of the cleanup process by Ruth Kayaba, the Unit Chief, an overview of the Remedial Action Plan for Sacramento Railyard Plant, MGP, by Marigolo, the Project Manager, questions and answers, Tammy Pickens, and then we'll have formal comments. Next slide. The Department of Toxic Substance Control mission. DTSC's mission is to protect California's people, community, and environment from toxic substances to enhance economic vitality by restoring contaminated land and to compel manufacturers to make safer consumer products. Next slide. I will now introduce Ruth Kayaba. She will begin her presentation. Ruth.
Thank you, Tammy. As mentioned, my name is Ruth Kayaba, the unit supervisor, and I will be providing an overview of the cleanup process. Next slide, please. DTSC works on a variety of cleanup sites which follow a standard cleanup process. The process ends when DTSC can ensure the site is safe for its intended use. Discovery occurs through activities such as public complaints and agency referrals. Initial investigations are conducted to determine whether there has been a release of hazardous substances that could pose a threat to human health and/or the environment. If response actions are needed, an oversight mechanism or legal document, such as an order, will be issued. During characterization, investigations are conducted to determine the nature and extent of the contamination. A risk assessment is also conducted to determine the human health and/or ecological risks. Cleanup goals and remedy options are also evaluated. During remedy selection, a document describing the proposed remedy, such as a remedial action plan, is shared with the public for review and comment. The proposed remedy will also be analyzed for the potential environmental impacts under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. This is the stage we're currently at for this project. After the comment period ends, comments received will be reviewed and replied through a responsiveness summary or response to comments, and appropriate revisions will be included prior to approving the remedy document. During implementation, the approved remedy is designed and constructed. The site may be certified when the approved remedy has been fully constructed and completed. In some cases, the approved remedy may take years and will require long-term stewardship, such as a land use covenant for capping of metals and soil at commercial property, or an operations and maintenance agreement for groundwater monitoring above a solvent plume. Part of long-term stewardship also includes periodic reviews of the remedy to determine if it remains protective and to determine if there is adequate financial assurance to pay for it. Throughout the cleanup process, administrative steps are taken to support public participation, cost recovery, and enforcement. And that concludes the overview of the cleanup process. Mara will now provide an overview of the Remedial Action Plan, or RAP, for the Sacramento Railyards MGP. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Ruth, and good evening, everyone. My name is Mara Golo, TSC Project Manager, and I will be providing an overview of the Remedial Action Plan, or RAP, for the former MGP study area of the Sacramento Railyards. Next slide, please. The property was previously owned by Southern Pacific Transportation Company, or SPETCO, merged with Union Pacific Railroad, or UPRR, in 1997. UPRR then sold the property to developer S. Thomas Enterprises of Sacramento, LLC, in 2006. Since then, several additional property transactions have occurred. The current property owner is Downtown Railyard Venture, LLC, or DRV. UPRR is a responsible party, or the party responsible for conducting cleanup work, under a 1988 enforceable agreement between SPETCO and DTSC. Next slide, please. The Sacramento Railyards is a 240-acre property located at 501 Jeboom Street, Sacramento, California. It served as a locomotive maintenance and rebuilding facility from 1860s to the early 1990s. Cleanup has been occurring since 1988. Due to the size of the cleanup, based on historical usage, the property was divided into 8 study areas for soil and 2 study areas for groundwater. Slide, please. This figure is a map of the site location. Outlined in red are the boundaries of the entire Railyards property, located north of downtown Sacramento, and enclosed in yellow is the former MGP study area, which is the subject of this RAP. Next slide, please. The former MGP study area is approximately 1.5 acres. The MGP ran from late 1855 to 1875, manufacturing gas exclusively from coals. Review of historical records, as well as site discovery, indicates that the MGP included several structures, such as a retort house, purifying house, heater house, offices, 2 gas holders, and an underground vault. Although no historical records were found to document the decommissioning of the MGP, it appears that the MGP structures were either removed or buried as a result of the Sacramento River levee construction. Next slide, please. This figure is a closer look at the former MGP site. It lies between the Interstate 5, or I-5 overpass, and the Sacramento River. Jeboom Street Viaduct is along the western border of the property. West of Jeboom Street is the Sacramento River levee, which includes a bike and walking path, open space, and abandoned building related to the former MGP. This figure also shows the locations of former structures, such as 2 gas holders and a vault. Slide, please. A series of remedial investigations have been completed within the site throughout the years. It was determined that the two areas of environmental concern are within soil and groundwater, with non-aqueous phase liquid, or NAPL, considered with groundwater for the purposes of defining cleanup objectives. NAPL are organic liquid contaminants that do not dissolve in or easily mix with water, like oil, gasoline, and petroleum products. Contaminants of concern for both soil and groundwater are volatile organic compounds, semi-volatile organic compounds, and total petroleum hydrocarbons. The remedial action objectives, or RAOs, for the site mainly include the following: prevent exposure to migration of contaminants in soil and groundwater, reduce contamination in groundwater, achieve remedial goals. Next slide, please. The feasibility study evaluated 6 cleanup alternatives to address the contaminants in soil and groundwater at the site. This table shows the cleanup alternatives as the columns 1 through 6, and the components in those alternatives as the rows. These alternatives provided a range of responses, including a no further action alternative, which is alternative 1, and alternatives that rely on treatment to reduce or eliminate wastes to the extent practical, alternatives 2 through 6. Factors used to compare and select the best option are the level of protectiveness, effectiveness, implementability, and cost. Next slide, please. Based on a detailed and comparative analysis, cleanup alternative 6B, with an expanded in situ soil stabilization, solidification, or ISS remedy, was recommended for the former MGP study area. This alternative includes the following components: implementation of institutional controls, such as a land use covenant, to restrict soil disturbance unless approved, a cap covering all areas where impacted soils would remain, removal of historic MGP structures beneath Jaboom Street, expanded ISS to treat and stabilize contaminants in soil, additional source removal if needed, such as groundwater extraction, NAPL recovery, and a groundwater monitoring program. Slide, please. The proposed project timeframe is as follows. Preparatory activities will take approximately 6 months. These include preparing additional design, permitting, and supporting plans and documentation. On-site remedy implementation will take approximately 1 year to complete. These include site preparation, excavation, ISS implementation, tapping and well installation, and demobilization. Slide, please. The City of Sacramento, as lead agency under California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, prepared the final Railyards specific plan, Environmental Impact Report, or FEIR. DTSC is considering the effects described in the city's FEIR and determining if approval of the draft RAP will not result in significant impacts to the environment. DTSC, along with UPRR's consultant, is preparing an addendum to the FEIR, the appropriate document under CEQA. Notice of determination for this addendum to the FEIR will be filed with the California State Clearinghouse with the State of California Office of Planning and Research. Next slide, please. Large equipment such as excavators and backhoes will be used to excavate and stockpile soil. Soil transfer trucks will be used to haul contaminated soil off-site. Such, plans for traffic management, truck safety, and haul routes will be designed to minimize traffic impacts. Cleanup activities will take approximately 12 months and occur between the hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday to Friday, subject to final permit requirements. Approximately 7,000 cubic yards or 700 truckloads of contaminated soil will be transported to a state licensed disposal facility. The trucks will be operated by a licensed hazardous waste trucking contract. Next slide, please. Finally, specific safety plans will establish procedures to ensure that remedy implementation is performed in a manner that protects human health and the environment. The following actions will be implemented during the soil cleanup process to ensure public safety and minimize dust. First, the staging area will be fenced to restrict access. Stockpiled soil will be covered with tarps or other protective sheeting. Water spray will be used to control dust generation. Air will be monitored throughout the cleanup activities. And tarps or other suitable enclosures will be used on trucks hauling the excavated soil. And that is the end of my portion of the presentation. I will now pass it back to Tammy Pickens. Tammy?
Thank you, Mara. Next slide. We are now at the Q&A portion of this presentation. This slide provides an overview of the 3 ways you can ask a question or make a comment. 1, the Zoom audio, use the raise hand feature and you will be invited to unmute your audio when it's your turn. 2, phone audio, press *9 to join the phone queue. I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn. Press *6 to unmute your line. 3, text only, use the Q&A feature to have your question read. We will now begin asking for questions or comments. Since we don't have any questions or comments for the presentation, we're going to skip our 5-minute break and we will begin the formal comment process. Next slide. We are now at the comment portion for this presentation. This is the portion where we will take your comments without responding. You will receive a written response in a document called a response to comment. Ruth Kayaba is the hearing officer for tonight's meeting. Ruth.
Thank you, Tammy.
Next slide. This slide provides an overview of the 3 ways you can make a comment. 1, Zoom audio. Use the raise hand feature and you will be invited to unmute your audio when it's your turn. 2, phone audio. Press *9 to join the phone queue. I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn. Press *6 to unmute your line. 3, text only. Use the Q&A feature to have your question read by the facilitator. Formal comments will be answered in a response to comment letter to accompany the wrap approval. Ruth, you may open your hearing.
Yes, we will now be accepting formal comments at this time. Since there are no formal comments, we will now close the formal comments period. Tammy?
Thank you, Ruth. Next slide. The public comment period began June 30th, 2023 and will end July 31st, 2023. Please send written comments to Marigolo, Project Manager at Department of Toxic Substance Control, located at 8800 Cal Center Drive, Sacramento, California, 95826, or mara.golo@dtsc.ca.gov. Documents are available at the Sacramento Central Library at 828 I Street, Sacramento, California, 95814. And at Envirostore link www.envirostore.dtsc.ca.gov, UP Downtown Sac Manufactured Gas Plant. This information is located in the chat. Next slide. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting and have a great night.